All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into some source material that takes, a really interesting look at how we truly learn something as complex as martial arts.
Hmm.
You might first think about, technique, strategy, maybe even the philosophy.
Yeah, that's the usual picture, isn't it? The visible parts, the concepts.
Exactly. But these sources argue we often miss the most fundamental element, and it's literally right there, the body itself.
Mm.
They make a pretty powerful case that learning with your body isn't just part of martial arts. It is, well, the absolute bedrock.
Yeah, for genuine skill, deep understanding.
Right. And that distinction is key, the difference between knowing about movement intellectually.
And the body's own internalized knowing. That's a huge point they make.
Totally. And the sources bring up a second, equally crucial thing, especially now with, all the online content.
Yeah.
The absolute need for a skilled personal teacher.
Right, because the digital age gives us so much access to info, videos, tutorials.
Incredible access.
But that access, as the sources really stress, doesn't automatically mean effective learning.
Especially not for these physical, interactive disciplines.
Exactly.
So that's our mission for this deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
To dig into this source material, pull out the core insights. We want to understand why the physical side and that personal guidance are just so vital in martial arts learning.
Mm-hmm.
Looking for that difference between just knowing about it
Mm-hmm.
and truly embodying the skill.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Okay.
The source material actually uses a great analogy right near the start. Imagine trying to learn cycling just from a book.
Right. Read all about it.
You could memorize the physics, balance, how pedals work.
You'd understand the theory completely.
Precisely. You know how it's supposed to work up here, but the second you actually got on the bike.
Yeah, you'd probably fall flat on your face.
Exactly. Because riding a bike isn't really learned in your conscious, logical mind. It's learned by your body.
And that's a core insight from these sources, right?
Mm-hmm.
The body isn't just a tool, like a machine. No, it's this incredibly sophisticated sensory system.
Constantly processing things. Pressure, balance.
Distance, speed, texture, yeah, everything. It's amazing when you think about it.
So when you're doing physical martial arts training, your body isn't just like mimicking shapes.
Not at all. It's absorbing this constant flood of sensory data.
Yeah.
And it's internalizing it on a level your thinking brain just.
Yeah.
It can't really grasp in the same way.
That feeling.
Yeah.
The right balance, the angle of a block when someone's actually pushing.
Uh-huh. The force needed, that tactile feedback, that feeling is just vital.
Yeah.
That's how you develop real skill. The sources even mention your baby brain.
Oh, the baby brain.
Yeah, those older, more instinctive parts of the brain. They need to learn through doing, through that physical experience.
It's not just thinking about abstract concepts.
Exactly.
So it's like connecting to that deeper, more intuitive learning, like how we learn to walk.
Yes, precisely like that. It taps into learning by doing, through repetition, building what people call muscle memory.
Right, muscle memory.
But it's more than just repetition, It's building an instinctive response through that physical practice.
Ah.
The sources highlight that this is how your body learns to react properly, especially under stress, like in a real exchange when things are unpredictable.
Right, doing a technique perfectly alone in the air is one thing.
Totally different from having your body just do it automatically, correctly, when you're surprised or under pressure.
Okay, so that automatic response.
Mm-hmm.
The sources also talk about something called deep body awareness.
They do, yeah. And this is where it gets really interesting, I think. It's not just muscle memory for, specific moves. It's your ability to sense, to understand your body's position, its movement in space.
Without having to look in a mirror or think about it consciously.
Exactly. And the term for that in physiology and the context here is proprioception.
Proprioception, that's a great word for it, that internal map.
Your sense of self in 3D space.
Yeah.
And the sources argue that a highly developed sense of proprioception is just foundational, absolutely essential in martial arts.
So that's what lets you make those tiny split-second adjustments to balance.
Uh-huh. And judge distances incredibly accurately.
Coordinate complex movements smoothly, powerfully.
Yes, you develop this really profound internal grasp of your own physical presence and what it can do.
So without that internal sense, Your techniques might look okay on the outside.
But they'd lack the grounding, the
Uh,
precision.
Yeah, that sort of organic power that comes from the body, knowing principles like leverage, gravity.
Energy transfer. Yeah,
Yeah.
learning it through direct physical experience.
Right. It's the difference between, say, knowing intellectually your weight should be low.
And your body just feeling when it's right instantly.
Okay, this intense focus on how the body learns, it leads right into the second big point from the sources, the teacher.
The indispensable teacher.
Yeah. Like we said, we live in this age of YouTube tutorials for everything, anything you want to learn.
You can find a video on it.
But the sources are really clear. For the kind of physical learning in martial arts, those platforms have, well, serious limitations.
They really do. And it basically comes down to interaction and feedback. Real-time, personalized feedback.
Oh,
A video can show you perfect form, a great visual example,
sure.
but it can't feel what you're doing. It can't see your weight's a bit off or, your shoulder's too tense.
Or your hip isn't rotating fully. Tiny things.
Tiny, crucial things, that immediate, personalized feedback. Like a teacher gently adjusting your hand or shifting your stance.
You just can't get that from a screen. No way.
Not at all. A good teacher gives you that essential tactile guidance. They help you find the physical feel of the correct movement.
Pointing out the subtleties.
Yeah, the subtleties that make all the difference, which are often invisible on video, even good video. They bridge that gap between seeing it and actually doing it correctly in your own body.
Helping your body find the right alignment, the right feeling.
Exactly.
And martial arts is inherently interactive, isn't it? I mean, the techniques are meant to work again.
Resistance against someone else who's moving, unpredictable.
Right.
And this is where the teacher and also training partners become absolutely crucial.
Okay.
They provide that necessary resistance, that dynamic environment. It forces you to develop timing,
Distance management?
instinctive adaptation, all in real time.
Yeah, because a technique that looks simple when you practice it alone.
Oh, yeah, it suddenly gets way more complex when someone's actually trying to stop you or hit you back.
Right.
A good teacher knows how to set up training scenarios that kind of simulate reality safely and challenge you to integrate your techniques effectively under that pressure.
So beyond the physical correction and the dynamic practice, the sources also mention something maybe less tangible. Tacit knowledge, tradition.
Yeah, this is a really fascinating part. A lot of the deeper stuff in martial arts, it's not easy to write down in a manual or even capture perfectly on video. There's this layer of knowledge, a certain feel for body mechanics, maybe energy flow depending on the art, the underlying principles. And traditionally, that's passed directly teacher to student.
Through shared physical experience, doing it together thousands of times.
Exactly. Through countless repetitions, the specific environment of the dojo or the gym.
It's like learning a language that's mostly physical. Hard to just explain in words.
That's a good way to put it. It's understanding not just the steps of a technique, but the why behind it. The subtle weight shifts, the intention, what actually makes it work effectively.
YouTube can give you the information, the steps maybe.
But it struggles to transmit that kind of deeply embodied traditional knowledge, the kind that comes from being physically guided by someone who spent, decades cultivating it.
Right. The sources also strongly connect the body-mind connection in martial arts to the teacher's role.
They do. And while martial arts definitely has huge mental aspects, discipline, focus, strategy,
Sure.
the sources emphasize that a lot of that mental strength is actually forged through the physical training.
Okay. And crucially, under a teacher's guidance. Pushing your physical limits, dealing with discomfort, sparring.
Facing challenges.
Yeah, those experiences build resilience, focus, the ability to stay calm when things get intense.
So the physical training isn't just about fitness, it's actively building mental toughness through that embodied challenge.
Precisely. And you hear advanced practitioners talk about achieving a state of, deep presence or flow.
Where body and mind are just one, reacting instantly.
Yeah. And the sources suggest this state is cultivated through that tough physical practice. But it's the skilled teacher who guides the student towards it, pushing them just enough.
Providing the right challenges.
Exactly. The challenges needed to kind of fuse the physical and mental together.
So when it comes down to it, you can read all the books,
Watch all the videos.
attend seminars.
But without translating that information into guided physical practice, the sources basically conclude that your understanding stays pretty theoretical. Superficial, almost. Right. It's only when you feel it in your own body, how the weight feels right, how an angle changes your balance, how your partner's push tells you what to do.
Uh-huh.
And you have a teacher there to correct the mistakes you'll definitely make
Oh, everyone makes them.
and guide you through the complexities that the knowledge really sinks in, becomes part of you.
Yeah. The sources really frame the body as the main learning tool in martial arts, but the experienced master. They're the essential guide. They know how to read that physical feedback from the student
Provide the right challenges.
and ultimately unlock the body's potential,
Yeah.
leading to that deeper, instinctive, real mastery.
So prioritizing that physical learning with personal guidance, that's the most effective path, according to these sources.
That's the core argument, yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It really is the difference between having info in your head.
And having understanding deep in your bones.
Exactly. Okay, so let's wrap up this deep dive. We've looked at source material, arguing pretty strongly that the body is your #1 sensory tool for learning martial arts, way beyond just theory.
Right. Developing that physical awareness, that proprioception. It's not optional, it's core.
Absolutely. And we've seen why, even with all the digital resources we have, the role of a personal teacher is seen as critical, irreplaceable.
For that immediate feedback, the dynamic resistance, passing on that tacit, embodied knowledge.
Yeah, it's paramount for mastering that body-mind connection and really integrating the knowledge.
The central message from the sources is pretty clear. Theory stays on the surface without guided physical practice.
The body teaches primarily.
And the experienced master is the guide who unlocks that potential.
So thinking about all this, how achieving that deep instinctive understanding in martial arts leans so heavily on physical experience and personal guidance. Maybe it makes you wonder, about how we learn other complex skills today.
In this world flooded with digital info.
Yeah. What other kinds of knowledge, what other areas of expertise really demand more than just watching or reading?
What truly requires the body to learn and maybe a human guide to really show the way?
Something to think about.